10 things I wish I knew in my 20s. Number one, you will always be right about your fundamental beliefs. Your fundamental beliefs are your operating system. They're the lens through which you view reality, but they're not absolute truths. These were initially ideas that you then masqueraded as truths subconsciously. And most of our beliefs are a result of our past experiences. So whatever we may have experienced during childhood and during our upbringing, we tried to make sense of whatever it is we experienced. And so we labeled certain beliefs as truths. For example, let's say you grew up in a household where your parents fought a lot and you were around that a lot. And so initially an idea might have popped up in your head. My parents always fight when I am around them. So maybe I'm the reason that they fight. Because in that case, let's say your parents fighting creates emotional distress and you want to regulate yourself emotionally. And in order to do that, you have to make sense of something you don't understand. You form a limiting belief, such as, maybe I'm not lovable. Thing is, once you save that as a fundamental belief, it runs subconsciously on autopilot. And so when you're older, guess what? The fundamental belief will always find its way to be affirmed. How? Via your attention. Your attention goes to whatever it is you fundamentally believe and then finds enough evidence for you to come back and say, see, I was right. We all know that. We talk to our friends, we're like, told you I was right. So we're literally subconsciously seeking evidence all the time to be right. We want to be right. No one wants to not be able to believe in their own beliefs. That's like pulling reality from beneath them. Everyone wants to hold on to that. Problem is, if you don't have a belief that serves you, it essentially controls you. And it is your responsibility to update those beliefs, because those beliefs are quite literally the largest shareholder of your reality. And we're going to talk about how to change and update beliefs in point 3. Number 2, undesired outcomes often stem from a misalignment of your values and your beliefs. A classic example is, I want X, but I believe Y. I want to be in a happy relationship, but I believe that all women are trash. I believe that all men are trash. I have a friend who thinks that way. He values the most noble things. He wants love. He wants belonging. He wants a marriage. He wants kids. But he believes that all women are trash and that women used to be better back in the day. This guy's in his late 50s. So constantly, all I see him on posts on Instagram, on WhatsApp, are memes about how women are this, how women are that, how women back in the day were good. Guess what? The universe doesn't give a single damn about what you value and what you want if your beliefs are misaligned. And subconsciously, more often than not, we value being right over valuing all of those positive virtues we seek in life, such as love, belonging, freedom, wealth. And as long as you value being right over all of that, you will always be right. But you can be right about anything you want to be right about, and that is the trick. So that leads me to point number 3. Your ability to update your beliefs makes you an alchemist. The single most useful tool when it comes to creating your desired reality is your ability to update your beliefs. If you could align your beliefs with the beliefs that the highest version of yourself would hold, your reality would change like this. It's as simple as that, but it's not easy. Why? Because your fundamental beliefs are the things you hold on to. We don't want to give up our fundamental beliefs. And we know that to be the case because as soon as someone is coming up with a counter belief, the first thing we do is try to defend it, because it allows us to get a grip on reality. But allowing us to get a grip on reality is different to allowing us to thrive and to expand. So we need to understand how we can actually change beliefs. And there's 4 ways. The first one is repetition. We're more likely to accept beliefs the more we repeat it. So quite literally, when I was going through my health struggles, I thought I was doomed. When I was getting these panic attacks and these tingling sensation and brain zaps, I thought, you know what? I'm unlucky. I will never be able to fix that. So that's a limiting belief. The first thing I did was stop surrounding myself repeatedly with those beliefs, because I was a lot in Reddit forums. And all these people were saying that, oh man, I'm getting worse. This is not doing anything. I've been to doctor number 25. I'm not getting better. So I was started to listen to people like Joe Dispenza, who speaks about how you're able to heal yourself. And I had that on repeat. I started to listen to Jordan Peterson, who speaks about you being responsible for everything that happens around you. And also that you can't use anything as an excuse to not progress. So I was repeating the things that I wanted to believe. And guess what? The more you hear it, the more likely you are to believe it. And that's why it's also so important who you surround yourself with. You know that to be the case. You start imitating some of the behaviors and some of the ways that people think, the more you surround yourself with them. That's the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most of your time with, because of that repetition of action and of thought and of frequency that is going to be absorbed by you to a certain degree, whether you want it or not. The second thing is you're much more likely to believe anything when it comes from an authoritarian or credible source. So whatever it is that you want to believe, what I did, I seeked out professors, MDs, biohackers, people that have credibility, that would repeat a message that I wanted to accept. And we are much more likely to accept messages from credible sources. That's why we're much more likely to accept any beliefs when we're young, when they come from our parents. And so the same way that the beliefs were formed when you were a kid, looking up to your parents and thinking that, they are the ones that always know better, the same way you can use that same strategy to listen to people you look up to, you view as credible, and you quite literally brainwash yourself with that over and over and over. The third thing is anything that is emotionally loaded is more likely to be accepted as truth. And the way that I use emotion to shape my beliefs is through meditation. So within meditation, I evoke a scenario that affirms that belief to be true that I want to believe. So let's say, for example, if you're someone that believes they're unhealthy and they can't change their health, you can evoke a scenario in your meditation where, let's say, your mom or your friend is congratulating you and telling you, I'm so happy for you to be healthy again. I always knew that you'd be healthy again. And you will, if you can perceive that scenario in your meditation, your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between the physical world and imagination as long as it's emotionally loaded. So you can do that with any type of belief that you want to accept. Bring that up in meditation and feel that to be as true as possible. Feel someone's handshake, someone's hug, someone's smile, someone's energy. And the fourth point, you will only believe something if it makes sense to you. So you have to find enough reasons to believe it. And the easiest way to use that strategy is to just set out an intent, to find enough evidence each day to affirm your updated belief. So if you're someone that thinks they're unlucky and you want to believe that you're actually lucky, because if you update that belief to be lucky, the reality around you needs to reflect that by the law of the universe being mental. What you do is every morning you get up, you set the goal to find 5 scenarios, 5 events, 5 conditions every day that affirm that you're lucky. And when you set out that will to do it, your attention is going to go out and seek that evidence. But because your autopilot runs on the old belief, you have to use your willpower in the beginning to find that updated new evidence for the new belief. Point number 4, to know trumps hope and belief. From the language of the universe, hope and belief signals lack. Every time you hope something or you believe something, you're leaving a little bit of doubt. That little bit of doubt is registered in your frequency. The universe will capture your frequency and quite perfectly reflect external reality based on your frequency. On the other hand, knowing something means you're living in a state of conviction. There is no more doubt. And when there is no more doubt, it just is, and you just are that. And when that's the case, the universe perfectly reflects that state to you. So you have to ask yourself, what are the things that I'm hoping for or I'm believing for that still carry a little bit of doubt? And from there, you need to move from hope to belief to knowing and being. The word faith comes from Latin fides. And interestingly enough, that root word actually doesn't just mean trust. It also means to persuade and to command. Why persuading and why commanding? Because when you say you are, you're commanding yourself to be. And when you are, you know there is no more doubt. So having faith comes with a certain level of boldness. And that boldness comes from knowing that you are whatever you command to be. Number 5, what follows your I ams orchestrates your reality. And that aligns with point number 4. I am is a declaration of being. So anything that you're 100% convinced of, you will say, I am. I am an accountant. I am a professor. I am a father. I am a husband. There is no doubt. You are that. So anything that follows your I am is a declaration of who you are. And what you are internally will be reflected outwardly. So you have to have the boldness to command that you are something before the world proves it to you. Joel 3:10, let the poor man say they're rich and let the weak men say they are strong. What does that mean? External world looks at you as weak. Your bank account might show you that you're poor, you have no money on it. But Jesus says, let them say that they're rich, and let them say that they are strong, that they are. I am rich, I am strong, not I hope I will be rich or I hope I will be strong. So that faith comes with the command of being, which will then be translated externally, but you can only have what you are, and you are the things that you affirm. Point number 6. Victimhood is rooted in fear, whilst responsibility is rooted in love. Victimhood, quite literally, is hiding behind a veil, which allows you to point your finger externally towards people, situations, and events, and blame those for not being able to progress. Why would we do that? We do that because it gives us a certain level of protection. It gives us a certain level of excuse for which we are not responsible, that explains why we are not more. Why would we not want to lift the veil and assume responsibility? Well, because the moment you lift the veil, you're naked. There's nothing else to blame. It's only you. That's a scary thing to do. Because then you have to look within and ask yourself why it is that you haven't been progressing. On the opposite, assuming responsibility by saying no matter what it is that is happening around me, I am responsible for it, that assumes courage. Why? Because you have to start being honest with yourself. What are the things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing? What are the things that I'm avoiding that I am doing? What are the things that I'm believing that are limiting myself? What are the things that I'm believing that make me weak? Do you need courage for that or not? Of course you do. But when you choose that courage, despite the discomfort that may cause, it's rooted in love, because ultimately you're creating a better version of yourself. And when you create a better version of yourself, you're going to create better versions of other people. Why? Because you're going to shine more brightly. Fyodor Dostoevsky said something crazy. He said, we are not only responsible for our own actions, but we're also responsible for everyone else's actions. And that's a crazy thing to grasp. I've been thinking about that for a long time. It's a brutal statement, but there is absolutely some truth to that, because if you were the best possible version of self, do you think you would inspire people around you to be acting differently? So if yes, then to what degree are you also responsible for other people's actions? That's why responsibility is absolute. You assume it, you choose to assume it no matter what, because it gives you control. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Number 7, your ego can mask itself as your intuition. And that's something I learned in my 20s when I would go out and drink a lot. And during that time, I was in a relationship that was really not good. This was a time when I was getting all these health issues. And when the weekend came, about Friday night, my intuition, which actually wasn't my intuition, this was my ego masqueraded as intuition, would tell me, go out and buy a freaking bag of cookies, some Nutella, buy some Tres Leches cake, buy some freaking Kinder Bueno, buy a pizza. You deserve it. You had a rough week. Go get out, get drunk, go party. I thought that, oh yeah, I'm doing this intuitively, but I wasn't. This was my ego finding reason to justify hedonistic behavior. Real intuition is very silent and very peaceful. So the way that I was able to distinguish and learn how to distinguish my intuition from my ego masquerading itself as intuition simply was whether there was a lot of chatter involved. The moment you go into reasoning and thinking why it is you should be doing this and why it is that you're doing this and this and that, you're moving away from intuition. Intuition is a silent pull from love. That's what Rumi said. And it's very true. If you actually sit in silence and you listen to your intuition, it's not an aggressive voice. It's not a crazy push. It's a gentle feeling of knowing what to do and what is right. Number 8, get a PhD in studying the echoes of your own upbringing. And that's something that I had to do to realize why I'm thinking the way I think, why I am the way I am. For example, in my case, I used to be very, very risk averse. And risk aversion comes with the problem that you're not going to be able to maximize your potential because you can't expand. Potential in itself exists in a state of uncertainty. Uncertainty is characterized by risk. So in order to extract potential, you have to be willing to take risks. In my case, for example, my mother was involved in the stock market when I was younger. This is when the dot-com crisis happened in 2000, and she lost a lot of her personal wealth. So in my head, from when I was a kid, was don't invest, don't be too risky with your money, go to school, get your degrees, because when you get your degrees, you have a fixed salary. Work your way up in a corporation or go to university and be a professor. Those are safe jobs. So I was imprinted with this belief that risk is inherently bad. If you believe that risk is inherently bad, it's impossible for you to fulfill yourself to the highest level, because the hero's journey in itself is facing the biggest dragon you can face voluntarily, which is just a symbol of facing the things you're most afraid of, slaying the dragon's belly and extracting the gold, and then sharing the gold amongst your community. So once you face the things you're most afraid of, you will extract your potential and you will level up to a higher degree. And when you level up to a higher degree, you earn wisdom. And that wisdom is the light that will then shine onto other people and that will inspire other people. And that's the part where the gold is shared with your community. And because of that, you need to understand why you believe the things that you believe. So you need to not just study the chapters of your early life. You might have to study the chapters of your parents' lives and your grandparents' lives. Because in order for you to understand the way you are, you need to understand why you believe the things you believe. And in order to understand those beliefs, you have to understand your upbringing. And in order to understand your upbringing, you have to understand why your parents said and acted a certain way around you. Number 9, money, AI, and social connections are multipliers, not causes. Sometimes people say, you know what, money is causing all this misery, or AI is dangerous. The reality is that all of those depend, whether they're good or bad, depends on what operating system you're running on. If you are trying to masquerade pain, I've seen a lot of examples with celebrities. Money and social connections was a catalyst and a multiplier for them to go down the abyss. Why? Because they were trying to numb pain, because they were trying to patch certain fears. And they tried to compensate by doing drugs, by going and involving in any type of hedonistic behavior. And so to that regard, money, social connections were a multiplier to move into the abyss more quickly. But the other way around, if you're someone that's operating from creativity, from expansion, from becoming a higher version, money, social connections are going to be multipliers for you to get there faster. So they are not the cause of anything. They are multipliers depending on how you go about reality. Are you trying to masquerade pain, or are you trying to expand? Same thing with AI. People are so afraid of AI. AI is just an extension of your consciousness. I've seen people interact with AI and quite literally outsourcing their creative abilities, their ability to think. And when you outsource your creativity to AI, you're quite literally outsourcing your soul. Your soul, which is part of the divine, part of God, part of the quantum, is your ability to think creatively. That's the last thing you want to outsource. It's very different to using AI to analyze an Excel spreadsheet or do busy work. So to that regard, any one of those tools are either going to serve you or push you farther away from growth and towards pain and numbing. But that depends on you. Number 10, we don't want what we desire, but the feeling states attached to them. You don't want the car, you want the feeling the car brings with it, the status, the feeling of joy driving it. You don't want the partner, you want the feeling of love, of belonging, of safety it brings with it. You don't even want the job or the career. You want the feeling of accomplishment. You want the feeling of financial freedom. We wouldn't want anything if we wouldn't feel anything. The problem is when we attach a feeling state to attaining something in this external world, we're outsourcing our inner state, the things we feel, to outer events. And that's the reason the Buddhists call this world the world of Maya, the world of illusion, because we think once we work harder, we will have the car, then we will feel happy. Once we become wealthy, then we have a full bank account, and then we will feel safe. The problem is, anytime we get to those outcomes, we might enjoy those feeling states for a certain period of time, but guess what? Then we're just seeking that feeling again, because we can never associate a feeling of completion with realizing those events in the physical world. On the other hand, if you can be wealthy, if you can be at peace, if you can feel belonged, if you can feel love first, you will operate from that frequency and you will attract these events magnetically to you in the external world. You will not pinpoint having the car or the house or the partner because it brings a certain level for you. Then you're doing it just based out of expectation. But now you're having them internally. And as a byproduct, you are acquiring those situations and events that are in alignment with those feeling states. And to that degree, you stop enslaving yourself to the physical world to be anything or anyone or feel anything.